My name is Renette Youssef and I'm the CMO here at Tradeshift. The webinar will be hosted by Christian Hjorth, our CCO, who will introduce you to Tradeshift and our business model, before he hands over to Nick Wood, Corporate Director from ASP and HS. Nick will present a case study on how he is using Tradeshift and the benefits they are receiving. Can I remind you at this time to please put your microphones on mute. There will be time at the end for a Q&A session, so if you'd like to ask questions, please use the live chat feature. Before I hand over to Christian, I'd like to also welcome Pete Lachlan, who will be live blocking on purchasinginsight.com. Finally, if you are tweeting, please feel free to use the hashtag TSWebinar. Over to Christian.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. We are very happy so many of you could show up. So, so my name is Christian Hjorth. I'm heading up sales here at Tradeshift. I've been with the company for 1.5 years. I have a background from Salesforce.com and from SAP. So if there's anything I want to get out of this webinar is to get a message across to you that for the first time in many, many years, there's something completely new happening in the e-invoicing industry. So it's really important for me that when you leave the webinar, and also in terms of the questions that you ask, that it's focusing a lot on the business model and the way that we can do things differently. Because I think with the value proposition Tradeshift is bringing to the market, combined with has happened out there, then I think that we'll be seeing a lot of disruptive initiatives going on in the industry in the coming years. So let's try to kick this off. Really, if you think about this, it's kind of crazy that today, each day, we are transmitting more than 300, or we are sending or exchanging more than 300 million invoices and purchase orders and other business documents. We have very advanced computer systems, both from the supplier and the buyer side, but still we choose a very old mechanism to transmit this data. We did a infographic in June over the summer, where we tried to look at, what are some of the costs and what are some of the implications of all this paper that is being sent around. And some of the interesting findings here that we put together was basically that it takes an average 24 minutes to process a paper invoice, and the average cost can really vary, but on average that's around 20 euro. And then another interesting finding is that a lot of the invoices that are issued contains a lot of mistakes. And there's a lot of disputes, and many companies, most likely all companies, are reissuing invoices. So a lot of cost is really going into this process. And then there's all the soft stuff surrounding all the hard transactions. So really all the communication. So we have found that approximately 1 out of 10 invoices, there's a phone call, and the most common question is, have you received my invoice? Is it okay? When am I going to get paid? So all these generic types of the things, which are kind of crazy because that's all already information that is in the finance system. And then many businesses are right now out of sync because it takes a long time for the paper invoice to be inputted into the finance system. So there's a lot of delay when you run reports on your ingoing invoices. And then, of course, there's the whole story regarding the carbon footprint. So if we can build solutions that would really take off in the market, this could save the planet a lot of trees, and ultimately a lot of good things will come from that part. So I think we can all agree that this is a massive problem, and the crazy thing is that, why hasn't this been solved? I mean, we have been able to tackle this for many, many years. So if you basically take a look at the evolution of what has happened since we started printing paper invoices, the EDIFACT standards that were introduced in the 80s and the 90s, a lot of OCR took off in the 90s too. We had the first trade portals. And then something interesting started to happen in the beginning of 2000, where e-invoicing networks like Ariba, Basware, and OB10 took off. Now you can basically say that since that time until today, so for the past 10 years, not a lot has really happened. It's the same providers in the market, it's the same solutions, and ultimately it's a lot of the same problems that we are facing right now. The founders of Tradeshift did something very special for the Danish government back in 2007. So they launched probably the world's first free, really big-scale e-invoicing network. And something really interesting happened because with the traditional networks, we were used to adoption rates of 5%, maximum 10. But in less than 10 months, more than 25% of all Danish companies were part of the network. So just by changing the charging model of the invoice or of the network and making it cloud-based, it was basically they were basically able to get massive adoption on the networks. That was noted by the Commission in Brussels, so they were invited there because they had started some work on a European-wide project called PEPL, and the founders were then heading up the technical team there. And when that went live, they basically said, well, something needs to happen globally, because this was just the beginning of the e-business. And it was not a question of doing something incrementally better. It was about trying to disrupt this and really make it work, because the adoption rates that we have seen so far have simply just been too small. So they basically launched Tradeshift based on cloud technology to be able to make the transactions free, and then mix it with social networks to make it spread, because the interesting thing about the invoice is that in the pure so the basis of the invoice is that it's extremely viral. If you receive an invoice, ultimately you would have to send an invoice to in order not to go out of business. So we view that as the perfect mechanism to grow the business network. So really Tradeshift is all about cloud to lower cost, to make it free, and then it's about using a lot of the stuff that we know from the well-known social networks, introduce them to the business side, and then use that to make the network grow. So let's try to take a quick glance at what are the other competitors in the market doing. It's pretty well known that networks like OB10, Ariba, Basra, they're charging the suppliers a significant amount of money to participate. But what that basically means is that only few of the suppliers can afford this and will adopt e-invoicing. So when you look at a typical Ariba OB10 customer, less than 5 to 10% of the suppliers are on the network. They may account for as much as 50% of the volume, but it's still, it's a one-way street, and it's only for suppliers of a certain size. What they don't cover is a lot of the cost that are around, or a lot of the processes that surround the electronic invoice. So a lot of the soft processes, such as making sure that you get less phone calls, making sure you can raise disputes on the platform. So a lot of this stuff that surrounds that process is basically not covered by those networks. And then there's another thing, because probably more than 70% of the revenue of those companies come from the supplier fees. So what does that tell you? Well, I guess one of the key questions you should ask yourself is, how much cost are you first of all willing to push down on your vendor base, because ultimately they would have to recur that cost somewhere, and you can be pretty sure that they'll be very clever about how can they cover those costs indirectly, and at the end of the day, part of that will definitely end up at your own desk. So at Tradeshift, we think that it was time to take a fresh look at the market and do something completely different. So what is Tradeshift? Well, if you look at the business model, it is completely different, because we say that all transactions to send invoices in the platform is completely free. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we not only focus, like the other networks do, on making sure that you get a very high part of the volume by connecting suppliers of a certain size, but we make sure that we can convert your supply chain into a real-time network by going after suppliers of basically any size. So going with Tradeshift means that the number of suppliers will be dramatically higher than on any other networks, while we at the same time cover at least the same number of invoices, and most likely a lot more than the other networks would too. That means that your internal business case will get a lot better, and you will create a foundation for doing other stuff in the future. This is one of the things that we'll get back to. And then the relations to the suppliers, I think this is another key thing, because this is really an asset, and you need to think about how you want to leverage that asset. Do you either want to push down a poor system, which means that the supplier will incur large costs to submit invoices to you, or would you rather use that asset for something more interesting, like, for instance, increasing your payment terms, or getting better deals with the vendor? We think at the end of the day, it's a question of making something better, making or creating value for the suppliers as well as for you as an organization. So why are we different? So with Tradeshift, there are basically no barriers. So we have worked very specifically on removing all the barriers that we have seen in the industry, and one of them has specifically been around cost. It's very easy. It's built like a social network, so it's easy to connect to your business partners. So it would be, if you think about Tradeshift much like LinkedIn, it would be as easy to connect to another company using Tradeshift as it would be to connect to a colleague using LinkedIn. And then there is the whole collaboration and interaction platform, which is part of it. So you can collaborate and you can interact on the platform with your business partners. But it doesn't stop there. It's also a platform to extend business processes by activating apps for the suppliers, or for you as a big organization. If you have specific needs or specific apps that you want your supplier base or your customers to activate, this is something you can also build on the platform. So if we look at how the network works, and how Tradeshift is a viral platform, this could, for instance, be you as a big organization. You would choose to go with Tradeshift. You would invite your suppliers on the network. They would then start sending invoices to you in the format that you want to receive. But these guys, they have seen that it has been very easy to connect to the platform. It has been a lot less hassle than they have been used to with other networks. There's no cost, so they really see this as a key thing. And since there's no cost, there is an incentive for them to start sending invoices to other big clients too. So as it has been in the past, a lot of those suppliers would reactively sit and wait by the phone for their big clients to contact them and saying, well, now guess what? Now we have gone with Ariba, now we have gone with OV10 and with other networks. So you have to comply with those formats, and you have to submit electronic invoices to me. Using Tradeshift, a lot of your suppliers will then use the platform to proactively promote electronic invoicing to their entire customer base, saying, well, now it's possible for us to submit electronic invoices completely free of charge. But it doesn't really stop there, because a lot of these guys, so your suppliers of a certain size, they have seen how easy it has been for you to roll out electronic invoice programs and what the adoption rate was. So of course they want to pick up a similar business case, so they would invite their supplier base too, and this is basically how the network grows. So the model has been running for a year and a half now, and is proven. So in less than 15 months, we have spread to 190 countries. So we started out in 6 European countries, and what happened was that the platform went viral. So companies in those countries started to invite other business partners in other countries, and that is basically how the network grows. So today we are more than 60,000 companies in the network, and we are growing with approximately 2,000 companies each week. We've had a lot of tractions within the corporate space. So our enterprise customers, Kuehne + Nagel, big client, ADTEF, the French government, DSV, and then NHS, which we are going to hear from in just a few more minutes. So what is it that Tradeshift offers? So this is our business cloud, as we call it. So if you look on invoicing on the upper left side, invoicing, branch management, business firewall, and archiving, those are all components of our core e-invoicing product. So of course, it's possible for all your suppliers to submit free invoices to you. We map your branches, so this is really how we set up your organization, so all the legal entities on the network. Business firewall, that's all about the ability for you to push out validation rules to your suppliers, making sure that the data quality that you get in is of the quality that you basically want, so you have much fewer problems with the incoming invoices, and the number of mistakes will decrease. So the good thing about business firewall is that can be, or the validation rules, they can be targeted to different supplier segments. So it could be that suppliers of a certain size, you can have more strict rules, whereas suppliers that are really small, you want to have more loose rules. Then of course we do archiving, and we have a lot of products on top of electronic invoicing. So for instance, purchase orders, we can send out electronic purchase orders. We have flip functionality. And then one of the things that is key when you run a network is the ability to update master data. So since all your suppliers will be running your own or their own profile on the network, then they would maintain all their own master data, so emails and so on. You can update all that, but you could also choose, if you look at the lower left corner, to build a custom app. It could be that you have specific requirements for additional master data, so you build an app and you activate that app for your supplier base, and they will be required to fill out that master data, and you can subscribe to that too. It could be price lists, e-catalogs, and things like that. And then we also run financing, so we do supply chain financing and other financial products that again incentivize the suppliers to submit electronically and move into the network. Now, there's no question that you can build a good business case around electronic invoicing, but really this is for us a mechanism to grow the network, because I think when you run a real-time global network, then you are suddenly in a position where you can do a lot of additional things where you can build a much more attractive business case. So for instance, regarding financing, for instance, regarding master data management, and so on. So in terms of onboarding, this is key for you to receive the return on investment that you're looking for. And if you look across all global companies, then basically less than 5% of all companies can today do electronic invoicing. And we believe with the right platform that it should be possible for everybody to get close to 100% electronic invoicing. We should enable you to communicate real time on the platform. So again, for us, it's not only a question of making sure that the suppliers that are really big will submit electronically, but again, it's a question of making sure that almost every single supplier that you have will be on the platform, because only by making sure they're on the platform you would be able to do more advanced stuff in the future. So always have a vision. Talk to the supplier about what is the vision for doing more advanced stuff than just making sure that you get the electronic invoice in. So again, what we have done in order to achieve adoption rates that are much higher than you have been used to seeing in the industry is that we have worked with the technical barriers to integrate. So there are basically 4 simple ways you can integrate with the Tradeshift. Either you can use our web interface. This is for suppliers that are really small. The connectors is something that we focus on a lot. So we have connectors for all the big accounting systems out there. Big organizations, they can choose to integrate to our API, or they can use SFTP to transmit the electronic invoicing to us. And finally, if you don't want to do any of those parts, then we have a partner paid option where you can map your format for a fixed fee of 800 euros. And once you have mapped that once, then it's completely free again to submit invoices through the platform. What all this means is that basically with the Tradeshift platform, what we're seeing, and which you will hear from NHS also, is that you would get approximately 20 to 40% supplier uptake only after 4 weeks on the campaigns that you would be running. I think these are numbers that you should bring to other suppliers in the market and then ask them what kind of numbers can you expect if you run onboarding campaigns with other companies in the market. And then finally, we are running this proven onboarding model. So we have built a lot of technology that supports the onboarding process. So it basically means that we can monitor the entire onboarding process, and you would have dashboards so you can see how many have onboarded, and you would be able, from the platform where you upload all your master data, to run the campaigns and then doing follow-up activities, again maximizing the number of companies that you get online. So that was basically it for me. Now I will like to introduce Nick Wood from ASP. So Nick, over to you.
Hello. Thank you, Christian. First of all, I would like to explain a little bit about Andlia Support Partnership. The fact the Shared Services Organisation was founded in 2002. We are part of the NHS. We have an annual turnover in the region of 36 million and approximately 600 staff. And we offer a broad range of support services to the NHS. The traditional transactional services of finance systems and payroll, estates and property management, ICT and patient meals. And whilst our customer base is primarily within the National Health Service, we do have some customers outside of that, and it is our ambition to be able to provide shared services to the broader public sector market. Our current customer base within the NHS is 49 organisations, again primarily across the east of England, and we support the variety of NHS organisations you can see on the slide. But in addition to that, community interest companies, and as I say, doing some work within the local government and further education market. With particular reference to Tradeshift and the financial services, we provide that to 17 NHS organisations. We deliver the financial services from two bases, one in Essex and one in Huntingdon near Cambridge. Annually, we process in excess of 450,000 invoices and have a supplier database across the 17 organisations in excess of 10,000. We use the Capita IB Solutions Integra Finance system, and that is common across all of our customers. As part of that, we offer electronic purchase to pay system, and where customers use that and use invoice and order creation, then with goods received notes and the receipt of invoices, we can automatically match. For those invoices received that are not against order, then we use automated workflows in order to forward those to relevant manager for authorization. All invoices are scanned to enable an image to be made available to the end user, and currently we use two methods, either manual input, traditional manual input of invoice data, or we use OCR, the Integra product, in order to get some efficiencies from that particular way of inputting. So why did we look at e-invoicing? Well, we were looking to reduce the burden of handling invoices, as Christian has already outlined. Handling paper is expensive. It's also time consuming. We were looking to reduce the time delay in receipt of invoices, reducing the transactional cost, creating efficiency savings therefore, and also cost savings to pass back to our NHS customers, and therefore excuse me, releasing funds back to frontline care. But also a big thing for us is that we are in a competitive shared services market, and we're always keen for ASP to be at the more competitive end of that market, because our business strategy is to continue to grow and win new business. So why did we consider and eventually decide to go with Tradeshift? We did actually review several solutions and undertook a feasibility study into the different products on the market. I think the key thing for us, we wanted something that was simple for suppliers to use. We wanted to, with having 10,000 suppliers, we wanted to make sure that we got a lot of suppliers on board. So we were also, in looking at the return on investment, wanting to make sure that the overall cost of the solution, both for the supplier and for ASP, that it was cost effective. A number of those solutions that we looked at, the actual cost to the supplier was high, and in reality, if there's a cost to the supplier, the end result is that is nearly always passed back to the customer. So we wanted to make the supplier looking for a solution that was cheap and effective for the supplier. And with the Tradeshift solution, as we've seen earlier, that is mainly free, although there is the one pay-per-use offer. The big thing for us as well is the Tradeshift communication with suppliers, with having a lot of suppliers to communicate with. Part of the service offer is for them to do that. And the other aspect for us was the system integration into our general ledger system, because again we didn't want to have to handle any data, we just wanted it to populate straight into our general ledger system. So for us, in looking at the business case, in the first year we believe we will save 1 whole-time equivalent. Our medium-term goal is to get at least 70% of transactions processed through e-invoicing. I know Christian will say that 100% is the target. We were probably being a bit more pessimistic in looking to get 70% through, but we believe if we can get that, we will have headcount savings in the region of 5 whole-time equivalents. We recognise that in moving towards the Tradeshift e-invoicing solution, that will lead to a diminishing use of OCR, and we hope at the end of the day very limited manual input. For us, that return on investment, savings that we can make for passing back to our NHS clients was a big driver, and we believe as well that it's actually an attractive service for our potential customers, but also the suppliers that we're looking to do business with, because part of the other service offer from ASP is around purchasing and procurement, and actually that supply negotiation aspect and linking with suppliers is a key part of our business strategy. How long does all this take? Well, in terms of our timetable, we had an initial technical discussion in April with Tradeshift. 3rd of May, agreed the validation rules that were needed to be applied for suppliers to use. By the end of May, we agreed the content of the emails that needed to go out, sent out a first test email in mid-June. We then did Tradeshift did, initial awareness email was sent out to suppliers on the 20th of June, and the big launch to around 3,600 customers on the 1st of July. And I think looking at the stats, and what we were pleased with is that from those 3,600 we've had 29% onboarding, and the graph in front of you shows that week by week the take up, and actually that was increasing, but actually get 9% in week 1 was somewhat astonishing for us. But actually I think is repeated by other organisations who have taken on the Tradeshift product. So the percentage increase in invoices that we're receiving back from kick-off, we've had a week-by-week increase in the number of invoices that we are receiving electronically. I think it's fair to say that the initial response has been good, and we're looking forward to the numbers to actually be growing more and more over the coming weeks. It is still relatively early days. We're only in week 5 now, so you know, time will tell. But I'm sure and confident that this is a success for us. So moving on to the benefits to us and what are we starting to see, then yes, the reduction in manual input, the improved accuracy, the inputting errors will not be there. The reduction in phone calls from suppliers should start to come through in terms of have you received my invoice? Where is the status of my invoice? Because part of the solution does offer the opportunity for suppliers to have access to invoice status. The validation rules that we set up ensure that the correct data is on the invoice to start with. And then of course we do get the sustainability agenda addressed, reduction in the carbon footprint from the reduced paper, the costs of sending invoices to us, we haven't got to scan them, etc. And subsequently shred the paper copies. Reduced cost per transaction, which is something that we all drive for and look to continually be more competitive, and it should lead to greater prompt payment of invoices, certainly for those in the public sector who have target to pay invoices promptly, then that will also be a benefit. Thinking from the supplier side, because as I said earlier, key thing for us was to have a solution that was cost effective for both ourselves and suppliers, is the e-invoicing is free to the suppliers. They have reduced postal cost. They know that the invoices that they send in meet our validation rules, hit our system, no need to resend those in. They know that we've got them. Suppliers are able to check the status of invoices themselves. So again, it's a self-service aspect. The invoices should be paid more promptly. And the other benefits for suppliers is that they can look to use the Tradeshift product in other areas. As Christian outlined, The master file update, master file maintenance is a key area that we want to look at next and work with suppliers on, in order to, again, minimize the interaction or paper interaction, telephone interaction with us. Suppliers can use the system more broadly than just e-invoicing, and of course they can use it not just in their transactions with us, but their other customers as well. And I think those other Tradeshift business applications are something that we want to explore once we're fully onboarded the AP side of things, because we ourselves, on behalf of our customers, send out invoices. We want to be using this from our accounts receivable side and be sending out invoices to customers as well. So to summarise, for us there was a very sound business case that provided a cost-effective solution for both ourselves and suppliers. I have to say that it has been a very positive working relationship with Tradeshift, and that's been excellent. It will generate savings for ourselves, which will be passed on to customers, and as I say, looking to use the further business applications that Tradeshift offer is something that we will be picking up with next. So for me, I suppose, the Tradeshift offer, has that sort of overall compelling answer that we were looking for, in that a high percentage to come through the e-invoicing route. It will give suppliers and ourselves real-time data, and there is that potential to have the master file data updated by suppliers, which will be of mutual benefit. And the key thing is getting a large number of your suppliers on board with this. 5% doesn't really cut the mustard. We're at 29%, with a real expectation of this hitting the 70–80% that we're targeting. That's the end of my thoughts around Tradeshift. Happy now, along with Christian, to take questions, and we hope to respond appropriately to you.
Excellent, thank you very much. Just before we move into the questions, I have two summary slides that I just want to walk through. So I think this is a very compelling story that Nick had to share, and I think this really underlines the fact that Tradeshift has brought a very compelling and a completely new business model to the market. And I think, more than one perspective, we are removing a lot of the barriers that we have seen in the market. So cost is of course one thing. It's the ability for the suppliers to do more with the platform than just to submit invoicing. A lot of these suppliers out there, they have been forced onto a lot of different solutions by the different big customers that they have. I think, with the Tradeshift platform, what is key for the suppliers is that they can use Tradeshift to invoice any company out there. And I think this is one of the key things. And also, allowing you as the buyer to make a lot of the information that you have in your accounting system visible for them, so that they always know what is the status of the invoice.
Of course, got him.
Welcome to GoToWebinar web event.
Just a thing here, I'm just going to mute. So, yeah, just going one slide back here. Okay, so so basically, we see a lot of clients that are using Tradeshift basically as the only network, and I think what is key here is that if you do like ASP and you choose Tradeshift as the primary network, you can definitely do that. But if you're in a situation where you have already worked with Ariba, OB10, or Basware, but you have not really seen the adoption rates that you were expecting, then you can still work with the Tradeshift. So we can help you get the adoption rate up, and you can use Tradeshift with the segments of suppliers where you don't really have any traction right now. Because we can work with any size of suppliers, really big one, and we fully appreciate and we agree with all the other networks that it's key for you to onboard suppliers that have very high volume, because that's going to be a significant part of your business case. But it's not the only suppliers you should target. It is key that you start thinking about what is the vision here, what is the next step after you have managed to get electronic invoicing. What is it that you want to do then? And then is the thing about getting the real-time connectivity to your supplier base, so you're able to do more stuff. I mean, think about the business case you can get with supply chain financing, dynamic discount, these kind of things. One of the reasons why those systems so far have not really taken off, that is because it's been so difficult for those organizations who have offered this to get access to the workflow systems on both sides, from on the supplier and the buyer side. Well, Tradeshift, we are doing that anyway. So that's why you need to find solutions out there that can help you connect to suppliers of any size. So you position yourself. First off, you would pick up the business case that you get from electronic invoice, but then keep the focus on what is next, what is the vision you would be looking for. So if there's one piece of advice I would give to you is that ultimately you're probably going to end up in a situation when you're going to go into the market and figure out who you're going to work with. Then when you compare Tradeshift to other organizations and when you look at electronic invoicing, keep in mind that it's a question of connecting suppliers of any size. It's not only the big one, as I've mentioned, it's basically everybody, and especially the long tail too. And then make sure that you involve the suppliers in the selection process. I mean, how often have you acquired software tools internally where you have not asked the users, well, which tool are you going to use, which tool would work best for you? I think this is one of the reasons why Salesforce has so much success right now, is because they have built technology that the users want to use, so they add value. And it's the complete same thing with electronic invoicing. Now the problem is that the users of the tool are really not within the organization. That's the suppliers. So what we always say is make sure that you involve them, and especially if you are evaluating more than one system, make sure that you take one day out of your calendar, invite suppliers of different sizes. So take 2 large, 2 mid-size, and 2 small ones, get them into your organization, and let them meet the supplier and let them see the tools, let them understand what the implications of electronic invoicing is for them, and then let the supplier explain to them what is the benefit and what is the pros and the cons of the system, and get the input for these suppliers, because by not getting that input, you have a big risk that you're going to introduce and you are rolling out technology that these suppliers are never going to use. And at the end of the day, it ties back to the positive feedback loop slide, where we discussed, how do you want to use the assets that you have with your supplier base? Do you want to use that asset to bring in a system that doesn't really work for them, or do you want to use that asset to maybe increase payment terms? I mean, this is what you need to keep in mind, and your ROI is a result of your onboarding success. If you're not onboarding and you don't get the documents in, then your business case is gonna fall apart. And I think it is really key that you think about what is the kind of tool that your supplier base want to use. And then the final point is, when you do your cost analysis, keep in mind that you look at the entire cost picture. This is not only a question of the cost you are going to pay for this. Look at the cost that your supply chain are going to incur. Again, a lot of the established payers collect more than 70% of the revenues from the supplier base. And I think you can rest assured that your suppliers, they are not going to see their profits going down because you are promoting electronic invoicing. They are going to try to collect that cost that they incur because you are rolling out Tradeshift or a electronic invoicing system somewhere. So always look at the cost on both sides. And with that, I think we're going to open up for questions, and I'm just going to make sure that Nick can be online as well. I can start out because there were a few questions here regarding tax compliance and the ability for us to provide digital signatures. So yes, this is something Tradeshift works on. The question was basically, are we tax compliant in all 190 countries? Unfortunately not. To be honest, it was a bit of a surprise with the speed. We didn't really, when we launched Tradeshift, saw that 15 months later we would be active in 190 countries. We are tax compliant in 35 countries as of today. We offer digital signatures, and we use PricewaterhouseCoopers as our accounting company to support us on that part. Then there was a question of SAP. We have a certified connector to SAP, so suppliers or or buyers, whoever you are, if you don't want to do the integration to our API on your own, a lot of big companies would prefer that because they have big SAP departments. But if you don't want that, we offer a SAP certified connector at a fixed cost of €500 per month. Then there was a question regarding where we get our revenue from. And I think, you know, that's a pretty good question. Now we have talked about that we do a lot of stuff free of charge. Tradeshift, there is a cost to receive invoices. That cost is approximately similar to what you would find for big companies like OB10, Ariba, Basra, those kind of companies. So on the buyer side, we have similar cost structures. The difference between them and us is that they would get 70% of their revenues. Then from the supplier side, we don't get any revenue for the electronic invoicing on that side. So one thing, of course, is that we need to collect that revenue somewhere. Now, we have a couple of distinct revenue streams. So first of all, we do a lot of additional stuff that we sell to big enterprises. So for instance, master data management, purchase orders, custom apps, those kind of things. That's one revenue stream. The second revenue streams is then apps. So we have a lot of big partners that are building applications and offering that on the network. So a lot of companies take the bet that Tradeshift will be the de facto standard for within a business network, and therefore it can be attractive to build applications on the network and then offer that to the network. So that's big companies like Dun & Bradstreet, Google, those kind of companies. And then the final revenue stream is financial apps. So we are bringing out, or we have brought out supply chain financing, and there is a whole range of different applications within this space that we can bring to the market. But again, you know, you have to think about the cost structure here. The cost structure of running of Amazon on an optimized third generation cloud platform is completely different from running on mainframe. So I think it's a combination of having different revenue streams, but at the same time having a different cost structure. Then there was a question regarding smaller and larger organizations on the ASP implementation, where they saw the uptake first. And Nick, you can also comment, but maybe I can just kick it off.
Yep.
It is clear. It is clear that with a very steep onboarding of 29% of the suppliers within 4 weeks, then it's obvious that a lot of those users on the web platform. That's also why we are seeing a bit delay in the big uptake on the number of invoices, because those suppliers with much higher volumes, they are connecting using SFTP, adapters, making the integration to Tradeshift on their own. So the 29% is a combination, but it is more web users than it is big companies, and obviously that makes sense, because if you look at the distribution on the supplier base, then of course you have a lot more smaller companies than you have bigger companies. But ASP, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're also seeing a lot of uptake on your suppliers that are really big too, right?
Yeah, we've had a good response across all sizes of organisation, really. But you're right to say that a key feature of this is the 80% of suppliers who are always difficult to get at, and the smaller organisations are significantly interested and see the benefit of this. So there is a good mix, and as you say, with the really big ones, they're not using the web side of things at the moment, but we'll you know, we feel it's a really good take up so far.
Yeah. So then there's a question regarding where invoice validations occur, and invoice validation is something that we have pushed out, so we make sure that the invoice validates before you receive it. So basically we have pushed that out on the website or the web interface when the invoice is created. But if you run an accounting system, let's say for instance you have a validation rule saying that you need to put in a purchase order number, and you don't have that feature in your accounting system, or you forget to put that in, and you send that via the SFTP server, then you will get a notification back on the SFTP server saying that you did not put in the PO number, so we cannot accept that invoice. And there is a email workflow connected to that, so it is not that you would have to go to the SFTP server. This is something that we also do on an email basis. Then there's been a few questions regarding the presentation and an information pack. And we'll send out an email with a link, so it will be possible to download all that information. And of course, everybody will be more than happy to go into more detail. This has been, we've just scratched the surface here, so of course there's a lot more to it. And to everybody who would like to have more information, we can definitely do that. So do you base your percentage enrollment for each week on your total AP invoice volume? Okay, so the way we have calculated that is basically a percentage of the campaign that has been sent out. So as Nick said, for the first campaign that was 3,600 suppliers that we had in there, and then it's 29% out of those. So the way we would typically do this is that we would send out chunks. So for instance, a campaign could be to a supplier base of, let's say, 5,000, and then it would be a percentage of that number. We have covered the cost for the invoice recipient. Yeah, so then there was a question of how do we get email addresses for 100% of your suppliers. Now, in the case of ASP, they have been very good. They have had a lot of data. They have not had all of it. So of course there is a process here. But what we typically do in the sales cycle is that we early on encourage the prospect to start that process, because as it probably is in most organizations, they don't have email addresses for the entire supplier base. So this is typically something that we say that whether you would go with Tradeshift or with somebody else, this is data that you basically need. We also run a service where we can collect those, but we would really prefer that this is a process that starts internally early on when you know that you're going to do e-invoicing, because that's going to benefit you whether you go with Tradeshift or with somebody else.
Just to say, from ASP's point of view, we had email addresses certainly for the purchasing side, because we email orders to suppliers, and also for remittances we've been using email addresses to send out remittance advices for many years as well, although in reality not 100% coverage, so we've had to do some additional work to get email addresses for companies.
Okay, great. So there's another question for you, Nick. For ASP, have any suppliers refused to move to e-invoicing with Tradeshift, and if so, why?
We haven't had any experience at this stage or feedback saying no that I'm aware of. So yeah, the answer to that is no at this stage. I think there is something again in maybe the message that we used to send out to suppliers, because I think what we want to do is to more than encourage suppliers to go down this route, and the wording of the email I think is important, because we want to move to the point where, you know, we're saying that to do business with ASP or ASP's clients, actually e-invoicing is a route that you need to go down.
Yeah. So there's another question, Nick, here. It says here 29% of the invoices. How many suppliers in percent? And I think just to clarify this, so the 29%, that is the number of suppliers. And I think this is probably confusing, because it's probably difficult to grasp that is 29% of the supplier base, because typically you would see 5 to 10% after maybe 2 or 3 or even more years.
Yeah, that's 20. That is 29% of the 3,600 companies that were in the first phase email. Yeah. So we're looking at roughly 1,050 are on board straight away or within 4 weeks.
So I think one other point regarding that is this is based on one invitation letter, one invitation email. So we have not, in the onboarding tool, we have the possibility to track very specifically which organizations have onboarded, which one have opened the email, which ones have tried to register but didn't run through the entire registration process. So this is without any follow-up activity whatsoever. So we have a lot of planned emails where we follow up with that are specified to the different groups that are really with a tailored messaging. So that means that we are able to increase that percentage significantly when we run the follow-up activity.
Yeah, Christian, just to sort of come back on the previous question about has any suppliers said no. I think just from, if there are any other NHS organisations out there, one thing that we've been conscious of is personally identifiable data, particularly patient data. And at this point of time, we've not focused on those areas, of course, because we're concerned just about that and that information being transmitted via this route.
Yeah. Okay, but I think we are running out of time, but I just want to thank everyone to participate. There's one more thing. We are running a survey on e-invoicing trends. So if you have a couple of spare minutes, we would very much encourage you to go to surveymonkey.com/s/Tradeshift and fill out that survey. That would be some mutual benefits, because of course we are using that in our vision to really drive our vision and to make this even better than it is right now. But otherwise, I just want to thank everybody. We are going to send out an email with a link, so you would be able to download the presentation. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out. My email address is chj@tradeshift.com. Nick, thank you very much for participating, and thanks everybody for being part of this very interesting webinar. Thank you very much. Bye.